The two Frenchmen wheel to wheel. The Alpine gets ahead. Gasly back to P14.
Well, great racing. And, well, all the experience of Gasly to know that coming off the inside, well, you would have to compromise your entry speed. And it worked for him to get the pace back this time.
They're not worried about the tyres at all back there. They're super aggressive at the back. They don't have to worry about it. I think they are choosing when to attack out front. Setting that mid-pack and start thinking about the tyres.
Hello there, if you're watching this on playback, this is the review of qualifying and the sprint race for the 2025 Chinese Communist Party Grand Prix at Shanghai. So, yeah, this is the championship table of the drivers. Thank you to the one person watching. Lando, despite having a bit of a mediocre weekend so far, retains the championship lead ahead of Max Verstappen. Lando has 26 points, but his championship lead has been reduced to only 2 points. 6 points behind him is George of the Russell, having finished third and fourth. Very consistent there by the 26-year-old Briton, 27 years old actually now. But Kimi Antonelli continues his impressive start to his F1 career with P7 in the sprint race. Albon failed to score points in the sprint race, but he has out-qualified Sainz in all 3 qualifying sessions so far and keeps hold of 5th place for now. Oscar Piastri is in 6th place. How many points does he have? Just 9 points since, of course, trying to think. Oh, he only gets 7 points for 2nd place in the sprint. Got you. Lewis Hamilton is in 7th place since you only get 8 points for the sprint race. And of course, the sprint race results are not included as part of the countback tiebreakers for F1. So, what's it? Piastri, despite having the same number of points as Hamilton on 9 points, stays in front. Lance Stroll remains in 8th. Leclerc, he's in trouble, to be honest. Charles Leclerc's in trouble. Hello there, Sands. Hello there. I hope you're enjoying your afternoon, Saturday afternoon here. It's a bit of a grey, cloudy day as always in Britain, but we'll carry on. And Yuki Tsunoda. Hello there, Keith Matua. I hope you're doing well. Continues his solid start to the season with a 6th place finish in the Chinese sprint race, getting 3 points and scoring his and Racing Bull's first points of the season. Well done to the young man. And this is your constructors table. McLaren remain in the lead. Mercedes remain in 2nd, but Mercedes are on 34 points and McLaren only have 35 points. Hello there, man. I hope you're doing well this evening. This afternoon, I beg your pardon. Red Bull remain in 3rd place with a 3rd place finish from Max Verstappen. But of course, Liam Lawson is still on 0 points. And I know it's only the 2nd weekend of the season. He's already in trouble, to be honest. We need to give Carlos Sainz more time. Yes. I mean, Alex Albon is a much better driver now than he was compared to like 5 years ago, if we're going to be truly honest. Williams and Aston and Sauber remain where they are, whilst Racing Bulls leapfrog Alpine for 8th place thanks to Yuki Tsunoda's 3 points in the sprint event. And after today, I've got to say it. It's looking very worrying for Alpine already. Forget about the fact that there's the threat of Doohan losing his seat to Colapinto. Alpine's car is looking very horribly slow again. Really slow. Like, all that good hard work done at the end of the second half of the season, and a few days ago, I said that, Ocon's daft attempt to overtake maneuver on Gasly at Monaco was the worst moment of his career until he joined Haas. Although I will say, though, the gap between Haas and Alpine is a lot smaller than I actually realised. I'm really worried. And just so you know, I am watching a replay of the sprint event where Hamilton and Ferrari were comfortably out in front. And gotta say, Piastri actually gave Max a very hard time and actually overtook him. Yeah, Ocon qualifying 11th in the full race qualifying session. Very impressive effort, I've got to say. And turns out I got a bit cocky myself saying that Ocon had made a bad career move. And I don't think Flavio Briatore will be happy because, of course, look, Flavio is not there to necessarily make Alpine a winning team again. He's just there to try and raise the market value of the team so that Renault can sell the team on for a nice, healthy price to whoever wants to buy the team off them for at the end of this year or next year or whenever it is that Alpine will eventually inevitably leave Formula One. Just so you know, Renault are only keeping ownership of the Alpine team for the sake of avoiding having to sack 500 staff members, of course. They've already let go of the 200 people that work at the French power unit engine factory in Viry-Châtillon back in France for the Renault engines, and I think there's at least another 500 people who work in Britain who work at the Enstone factory, and this is a very uncertain future a lot of the employees that the Alpine factory face in Britain. The French guys have already been sacked, and the British guys have also got the hammer hanging over their heads as well. Gotta say, Russell and Leclerc had a very nice dice. Antonelli did a great job holding off Lando Norris for 7th place in a sprint race, getting 2 points, and of course continuing his great start to the season. Max Verstappen has got 8 penalty points. Yes, you are correct. Max is under real danger. Trying to look. Russell only just about held off Leclerc for 4th place towards the end of the race. So that Ferrari is looking considerably better than it did 6 days ago. Although he did complain about some handling, Leclerc did complain about a handling issue in turn 13, saying that he was getting too much understeer. But I think obviously Leclerc's got another problem, which is 40-year-old Lewis Hamilton has already got his number. No wonder he didn't do anything stupid at the start of the sprint race. Well, yeah, because he's been absolutely battered for raw speed by Hamilton, who, yeah, he's 40, but he's no ordinary 40-year-old. That's all I'm going to say. Although I've got to give Lance Stroll a bit of credit. He did beat Alonso in a sprint race, and funnily enough, I think Lance Stroll has actually had a good start to the season, surprisingly enough. Although, of course, when I say good start to the season, that carries a huge asterisk next to that statement because, of course, I wouldn't be surprised if we turn up in Japan or Bahrain and then Stroll goes and has a massive crash and then his confidence goes down the drain again. I've got to say, Red Bull looked really horribly slow in the sprint, though. I think Max ended up finishing almost 10 seconds behind the sprint race winner, Lewis Hamilton. Nearly 10 seconds behind the Ferrari. That's really concerning for Red Bull. And once again, Oh, and let's look at Dolan's overtaking attempt at Bortoleto. I think that's a 50-50 move there at the hairpin between the Australian Dolan and the Brazilian Bortoleto, and that meant that Sainz and Hulkenberg overtook them at the end of the race, and Bortoleto 18th, Dolan 20th. I think it looks like Hulkenberg got a time penalty. Whilst the two horses finished 15th and 16th, with Bearman finishing ahead. And Gasly finished 12th in a checkered flag at a sprint race with of course, Albon in front of him. And Racing Bull's Hadjar finishing 13th, getting precious laps under his belt. And yes, indeed, rest in peace to the great late Eddie Jordan, the man who gave both Schumacher brothers their debut in Formula One. Of course, Schumacher, Michael, the older brother, left after just one race to join Flavio Briatore's Benetton team. Ralph did 2 years of Jordan and came extremely close to winning the Belgian Grand Prix, but of course, team orders meant that Damon Hill was allowed to win what would be Damon's 22nd and final race win in F1, whilst of course that was Jordan's first ever win in the sport. And then, of course, 1 year later, they went and signed Heinz Frentzen, won 2 races that season. Frentzen finished third in the championship in a season which, well, had he got a bit luckier, had he maybe, if Jordan had a better second driver than Damon Hill, who knows? Frentzen could have pulled off one of the greatest upsets ever by becoming a world champion for Jordan. And of course, Jordan finished an all-time high of 3rd place in the constructor standings in 1999. Of course, like Piastri. And for those of you saying that I was wrong in saying that Lando Norris will not become a world champion, well, look, he finished 8th in the sprint race, and he also struggled in qualifying. He's, what did I say? He's just too inconsistent. He's not consistent enough to be contending for a championship right now. Great performance in Australia, by the way. I'll give him that. He was great in Australia, especially when, of course, he went off the track late on in the pouring rain and made a very shrewd decision to jump to the pits at the last second. But I don't get it. Like, he looked absolutely brilliant in Australia, but it seems to be like any time he has a problem in his car or with a strategy or reliability, his performance just falls off a cliff. I don't know what's going on with Lando. Like, and this is what I said, that, the likes of Russell, Hamilton, Piastri are going to be a problem for him because, in order to fight Max Verstappen, you've got to be able to comfortably beat all the other drivers around you in order to take Max Verstappen on by yourself. Oh, yeah, the mid-1990s, yeah. I mean, Damon Hill, David Coulthard, I think wasn't really a particularly what you would call a world championship winning duo at the time. And it was only in 1996 when Williams designed what I think the FW18, which was in reality the greatest ever car Williams designed, despite the lack of gizmos that the 92 and the 93 Williams had back then, when, of course, Mansell and Prost became world champions for them. Mansell doing it the only time in his career, and, of course, Prost becoming a 4-time champion before both went and retired from the sport. And on top of that, of course, the tragic passing of Ayrton Senna at Imola. By the way, obviously, what happened to Senna was something that I don't think anyone could legislate for, but you have to realise there was a bit of misfortune for Williams when it came to their drivers, in that Mansell refused to stay on board with Williams when Frank told him that he would be signing Alain Prost as a driver for 1993. Riccardo Patrese then decided to leave because I don't know. Apparently, he thought that Nigel Mansell or Ayrton Senna would be signing on for 1993, so he thought it might. So Patrese thought he'd be better off going to Benetton, only to find himself getting obliterated by a young Michael Schumacher. Yeah, but the thing is, though, look, Charles Leclerc, well, look, he can also blow hot and cold as well. So, look, I think he'll have his chances, and he could well interrupt Norris' season as well. But that's not the point I'm making. I'm talking about the problems that Williams had with their drivers in the early 1990s with because of Mansell and Prost quitting the sport when he did, partly due to the fact Mansell didn't want to be teammates with Prost, and Prost didn't want to be teammates with Senna. And then, of course, what happened to Senna shortly afterwards, which was, I mean, really was just, I mean, I know obviously people still to this day wonder what happened to that steering column that Ayrton Senna used in his car. But I don't think anyone could have imagined Senna losing his life the next day after Ratzenberger did. And that meant there was a shortage of top drivers in the sport. And the fact that Michael Schumacher and Benetton were on the ascendancy at the time. And it was only when Schumacher joined struggling Ferrari and then Williams designing what was in reality probably the greatest car they ever designed in the 1996 FW18 car with, of course, Damon Hill and Jacques Villeneuve winning 12 races together, which is actually the most number of races Williams have ever won in a single F1 season, by the way. And of course, with Michael Schumacher having no chance of winning the championship in an unreliable and clunky and slow Ferrari, yeah, Damon Hill finally got a championship and then got sacked. So, yeah. And another statistic is that, of course, no driver has ever managed to win a championship more than once with Williams Grand Prix engineering. The Charles Leclerc is in trouble, I've got to say. He is in trouble. Like, this is a 40-year-old Lewis Hamilton. I mean, and we did see Hamilton struggle in qualifying towards the end of the season. So, and I did say that it is pivotal for Charles Leclerc to beat Lewis Hamilton, of course. If Hamilton decides to retire after 2026, then there's always a chance that Ferrari might go and choose Max Verstappen as Lewis's replacement. And we all know that would inevitably mean that Leclerc would be resigned to a number 2 driver role if that happened. Of course, we're also completely uncertain of what will happen to Ollie Bearman and his progress at Haas, who, of course, struggling towards the back of the grid right now, but that remains to be won for the future. Piastri takes first pole ahead of Russell. Great qualifying performance by George of the Russell. Look at that helmet. Very nice helmet. I mean, George Russell does do some very good helmet designs, by the way. Seventh place for Isaac Hadjar. Oh, yeah, by the way, I think, what was it? 2024 Constructors title battle between McLaren and, I think, was it Ferrari and Mercedes and Red Bull? I can't remember what happened, but I think it was, yeah, but I think last year's Constructors battle was the first time the Constructors title fight went to the final round since it must have been 2008, because, of course, Ferrari and McLaren went to the final race in 2008, and Ferrari won what remains their most recent Constructors title win with Kimi Raikkonen and Felipe Massa at the wheel. And if any of you wondering, yes, I might do a live stream for the Norway versus Moldova game later on, since of course I know a certain John Carty will probably be watching it. It looks like more bark than bite might. Okay, I'm not sure what you mean there, but yeah, hope you're doing well, John. Oh, right, Liam Lawson. Yeah, I know what you're talking about now. I did say that I would wait until like Silverstone to judge Liam Lawson, but that's like, I don't know, 3 consecutive Q1 exits now for Liam Lawson. That's pretty worrying. Yes, that's who I was talking about. But that is your top 10 for the starting grid for tomorrow's Shanghai Grand Prix. Piastri on the front row with the very impressive George Russell. Lando Norris, I know he was only 0.15 seconds off Piastri, but that could cost him points in the championship. Like I said, that lack of consistency that we saw last year is beginning to rear its ugly head again for Lando. I keep saying it because, you know, against Max Verstappen, you cannot afford to lose points. You can't afford to lose points. Antonelli's been good so far, yeah. I mean, okay, I know he's not going to be quite scoring big points straight away, but I think come mid-season, I think Russell will have his hands full with Antonelli, and we're going to be seeing some very, very dumb excuses coming out of George's mouth at some point around Silverstone or maybe Hungary, Spa, if you know what I mean. Especially when Antonelli starts beating him, because, you know, if your dad decides to name you after Kimi Raikkonen, oh, you must be a good driver. Oh, you must be one hell of a talent. Yeah, obviously. But having said that, though, Hamilton will start on the 3rd row alongside Leclerc, only less than a tenth ahead of his teammate. So, who knows? I mean, Leclerc might will pull off a great performance tomorrow to prove some doubters wrong. Isaac Hadjar out-qualified Tsunoda for the first time in his F1 career. He's responded well to being called embarrassing by the one-eyed Austrian team boss he's got there at the Red Bull Academy. Albon, yet again, out-qualifying Sainz. Sainz still hasn't got to grips with that Williams yet. My God, Antonelli was really quick in Q1, by the way. Oh dear, Lawson. Even Bortoleto beat him. I'll say Ocon and Hulkenberg were ridiculously quick. Putting off Hulkenberg. Well, is it really a surprise that Hulkenberg pulled off yet another miracle? No, of course it's not. It never is, to be honest. I mean, he's a classic case of too good for the midfield, maybe not good enough to be a top team driver in F1. Oh, yeah, you did mention that Max Verstappen has got 8 penalty points, which is obviously something to talk about. Gotta say it. Lance Stroll has been really close to Alonso this weekend, beating him in a sprint race, and only being narrowly out-qualified by less than a tenth of a second in Q2. I think Alonso's age is actually now catching up with him. Sainz, I've already mentioned it. That he does seem to be a bit of a slow starter, to be honest, when he joins new teams. Yuki Tsunoda went, I think he actually went fastest. Did he go fastest? I'm going to wait for Russell. Oh, Russell went second fastest. Tsunoda, I think, actually did. Oh, Hadjar got the fastest time in Q1. Like me, Racing Bull, I've got a fast car this year. Oh, Norris went fastest, sorry. And of course, hello there, say regards. Yes, indeed, Nikita Mazepin to go. Absolutely criminal that kid only got one season F1. Hadjar and Tsunoda, second and third fastest in Q1. That Racing Bull car, I think, could well be, well, honestly, I think in terms of pure pace, they've definitely got to be contending for a sixth place finish in the Constructors. If anything, I think I probably overestimated Alpine's pace just simply because of who the hell happens to be driving for them. Pierre Gasly, obviously. And the only, well, I mean, my main reasoning was that I thought that Alpine would have a car more or less on the same pace as Racing Bulls, but Jack Dowood would fail to score points. But really, I think that Alpine is just too slow to be. I mean, honestly, if they finish seventh, I think that would be a good result for them at this rate. Who would drive for Red Bull if Max Verstappen got suspended? They'll probably just put Tsunoda in it, won't they? It's not like they have much choice. Thank you for 2 likes here on this stream. Ocon, I think, is obviously making the Haas look a bit better. It really is. Honestly, I think when it comes to the back of the grid with Haas, Alpine, Sauber, and of course Aston Martin, it's going to be a case of the number 1 drivers doing a job for them. Yeah. It's going to be, I mean, this whole entire grid is so close now that, you know, Perez, Bottas, Ricciardo, Joe, and Sargent have now left the grid. It's looking a lot better now, because I will say the quality of drivers we've had in the past 3 years since, you know, between 22 and 24 has been probably one of the more mediocre grids I've seen for a while. But now that we've got rid of at least 5 or 6 drivers who have been rightly criticised for underperforming, Ricciardo, Bottas, Perez, Joe, and Sargent, it looks much better now, far closer, much higher quality. Okay, you could sit there and say that Lawson is struggling to deliver, but we're only 2 weekends into the new season. It's not like, I mean, let's face it, I think obviously, if there's one thing you will not hear me say this season, I will no longer will be coming out here saying, oh, if Williams had Kimi Räikkönen as a second driver, he would score more points, because now that Sargent's not there, yeah, I can finally retire that quote for God. Because honestly, I'm not joking. I think the quality of the grid for the past 3 seasons was pretty poor, with Bottas and Ricciardo just extending their careers for the sake of it. I know some have obviously mentioned that Cadillac might employ Perez, Ricciardo, or Bottas, but, you know, with Colapinto in the frame, waiting for a seat, and maybe some kid in Formula 2 ready to make the jump up like Ritoma, the Japanese guy who's the reserve driver for Haas, making his debut in Formula 2 this season, I think we are beginning to see the end of the old guard. And of course, there's only 3 drivers on the grid who were born before 1994 remaining on the grid, with Alonso, Hamilton, and Hulkenberg, the only drivers past the age of 31 years old, I think. I think Magnussen gone. Well, I think that's a bit harsh, but Well, I mean, you know what I think of Kevin Magnussen, that I actually like him, but in a sense, it was probably a good thing for him to go as well. But you got to realise he was a great servant to Haas, regardless of what you think of his antics and some of the crashes and incidents he got involved in. But you cannot forget the 2018 season where, I'm trying to think, did he finish fifth or no? I think Renault finished fourth, and of course Haas finished fifth. Of course, Magnussen out qualified and outscored Grosjean helping Haas to finish fifth in the 2018 constructors title. And he willingly gave up his seat for the 2021 season when Haas were in financial trouble, and then came back when, of course, Mazepin, well, more specifically, Mazepin sponsors got banned due to what's going on in Ukraine. So, even if he was a bit rough and a bit too aggressive for his own good, Magnussen was a net good for Haas. I mean, and of course, this is, of course, the first season that I think... No, this is probably only going to be the second season that Haas will be competing in F1 without either Grosjean nor Magnussen in the team, amazingly enough. That's how long those two drivers would race for Haas, by the way. Because, of course, 2021, they had Mick Schumacher and Mazepin at the team. My God, but Racing Bulls look so quick right now. Like, I think the Racing Bulls might only be like 3 or 4 tenths slower than the Red Bulls on pure pace. Weirdly enough. Just to remind everyone joining the stream of who the top 10 is. Piastri on pole. Is that his first ever pole position in F1? I don't know, but it probably is. Someone please remind me. 3 likes on the video, thank you very much. Russell. Oh yeah, Mercedes powered cars don't do well around China for some reason. Verstappen 4th behind his championship rival from last year in 3rd. That's one to watch out for. Once again, Norris versus Max. Hadjar, very impressive 7th place position in qualifying there. Who knows? Hadjar might get that second Red Bull seat for Silverstone since Red Bull don't seem to be very keen on Yuki. Yeah, I mean, that Toyota sticker could get bigger and bigger in the future for Haas. I mean, especially if that Japanese Ritoma kid gets a seat for next year, because you never know what might happen with Esteban Ocon. He might go and join Cadillac next season. And then, of course, I mean, if Ritoma can get like a top 5 finish in Formula 2 this season, I would not put it past him getting a full-time F1 seat next year in 2026. I mean, as for Cadillacs, I don't know who could be their drivers. I don't know. Ocon, Perez, maybe Gasly if he realizes that he's wasting his time at Alpine. Oh my God, I just thought about it. Ocon and Gasly could be teammates again next year. Oh dear. Oh wow. Antonelli, okay, maybe he could improve his qualifying pace, but at least he got into Q3 this time, because last weekend he got knocked out in Q1. And yes, we all know, of course, the 2 Japanese car manufacturers, Toyota and Honda, have always been enemies on and off the track. I mean, of course, I know what's his name, Nobuhara Matsushita from used to race for ALT's Formula 2 team, got sanctioned or punished by Honda because he decided to drive for either Toyota or Nissan in a GT series a few years back. So, yeah, that's going to be one to see, because for all we know, like, Toyota might start meddling with the Ferrari engines that Haas use, and they might even try and engineer a deal to rebrand those engines as I don't know, Haas Toyota, like what we see with Red Bull and with using Tag Heuer to rebrand those Renault engines between 2016 and 2018, and of course what they've done in recent times with Honda, due to of course Honda initially pulling out of F1 for the 2022 season, only to then sort of come back and have a bit more involvement again in 2023. So, and of course Honda will be joining Aston Martin next year. Sorry, I need to focus on the comments. I'm looking at the screen at the same time. It's Q2, and of course Leclerc was on the bubble, really dangerously close of missing out on Q3, by the way. And the cameras just keep showing up all those close-ups of Joe Guan Yu, so Grand Prix, sitting in a Ferrari garage, doing not much, to be honest. But Hulkenberg was at one stage half a minute away from entering Q3. Oh yeah, can someone put a thumbs up in the comments, because I think I actually missed out on someone saying something in the chat. Just so you know, Ocon and Hulkenberg were 11th and 12th. Just a thumbs up, maybe, because I think I missed a comment about 2 or 3 comments now. I really hope the chat's not broken, by the way, because that'll be so annoying. Aston Martin really are dead slow, by the way. Like, that's just me stating a fact. So, welcome to Crystal Racing for my review of the Chinese Grand Prix sprint race and qualifying sessions. Piastri only just entering his 3rd year of F1, so of course Lando Norris has got his work cut out after, of course, only finishing 8th in the sprint race. That's pretty worrying if you ask me, considering he's supposed to be in his 7th year of Formula 1, and he's supposed to be McLaren's #1 driver. Of course, I know one of my viewers, Keith Achua, alluded to earlier on that Williams were struggling to gain a lead driver any sort back in the mid-90s when he had David Hill and David Coulthard as a driving partnership. And yeah, they actually were struggling again in the they were struggling around between 2002 and 2004-ish when they had Ralf Schumacher and Pablo Montoya as a driver partnership with, of course, I mean, in 2003, everyone expected Ralf and Montoya to take a championship fight to the older Schumacher, but come the end of the season, Kimi Raikkonen finished just 2 points behind 6-time world champion Michael Schumacher in 2003. So, and I know there were a lot of observers and pundits and journalists who said, what if Kimi Raikkonen drove the Williams BMW FW25? Kimi probably would have been world champion. But of course, that Williams did have a very strong oversteering characteristics of the car, but I mean, considering what a force of nature Kimi Raikkonen was in the early 2000s, I've got to say it. Yeah, Kimi Raikkonen would have probably found a way of adapting his driving style to the Williams. And it was only until 2005 when Fernando Alonso became a world champion, showing what happens when you actually have a young talent at the wheel. Although, of course, talking of Toyota, the 8-year stint between 2002 and 2009 was, well, pretty average. Not bad, but it just wasn't impressive. I think they scored like a dozen podiums, but they never won a race. Leave a thumbs up in the comment section because I think I might have lost my chat permanently, which is a shame, but what can I do? Albon once again doing a decent job. Let's look at the championship table for those of you who are not sure. Rest in peace, Eddie Jordan, of course, a guy who won 4 races as team owner in Formula 1 between 1998 and 2003 with, of course, David Hill, Giancarlo Fisichella, and, of course, David Hill and Heinz Frentzen, if I didn't mention. Yeah, Frentzen winning twice in 1999, it on course to a 3rd place finish for himself and his team Jordan in both championship fights. Lando Norris still leads the championship, but Max closes the gap to just 2 points thanks to Lando finishing only 8th in the sprint race. Not very good, but George and Andrea Kimi Antonelli continue Mercedes' solid start to the season, which means that Mercedes closed the gap to McLaren by just 1 point in the Constructors' Championship fight. Then, of course, Piastri leaps up to 6th place ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who won the sprint race. And Lance Stroll remains ahead of Charles Leclerc, surprisingly enough. And Tsunoda takes his and Racing Bull's first points of the season. And only 11 drivers have scored points so far this season. So, yeah, I think the Constructors' table is more or less where you were from the first race. To be honest, Red Bull still in 3rd. Ferrari 4th, despite getting 1st and 5th in the sprint. And, of course, Williams, Aston Martin, Sauber in 5th, 6th, and 7th. And, of course, Racing Bulls leapfrogging Alpine for 8th place. That is the only change in the Constructors, but the gap between McLaren and Mercedes is now just a single point, which is concerning. Wait, how many points? Oh, no, Mercedes were leading the Constructors' title, weren't they, after the first race? It was that, McLaren have actually taken the lead of the Constructors, I beg your pardon, but yeah, this field is a lot closer than it was. It's really boggling my mind up now. Apologies, yeah, but Mercedes have actually lost the Constructors' lead, I beg your pardon. But a lot can change tomorrow, I will say, because I mean, it was raining in the race in Australia. Who knows what the weather's going to be like in Shanghai? I think there's been nice sunny weather, but I don't know, mate. I'm looking at ignore the sprint qualifying. Apologies. This is the actual race results. Hamilton 1st, Piastri 2nd, Max 3rd, George 4th, 5th Leclerc, 6th Tsunoda, 7th Antonelli, 8th Norris. Lawson and Hadjar finished the race for the 4th time for their respective teams. Bearman beat Ocon. And Dowen's last lap contact with Bortoleto meant they finished 18th and 20th. And I'm a bit confused because it looked like Hulkenberg overtook Bortoleto on the last lap, but then it turns out, well, he didn't. But it's so confusing. But yeah, that's your top 8 for the sprint race. And of course, the qualifying grid for tomorrow's Grand Prix looks like this. So yeah, so I mean, I might do a stream for Norway and Moldova if I can find a stream somewhere in about 45 minutes time, because of course I've just realised I have never done a commentary for a Norway game ever, and of course Viaplay do live streams on their YouTube channel for a lot of the international matches. Of course, I've done live streams for Thailand, England, Indonesia, France, Italy, Spain, obviously, Germany at the last Euros. I've not done a live stream for America and South Africa yet, but I don't know. Maybe if later on this year for AFCON, I might do one for South Africa. And of course, I mean, as for America, I think, well, the problem with America is that all their games are on at like really late at night. And some of them are like during the early hours of British UK time. So I can't, well, frankly, I don't do live streams at that time of night. So, yeah. Please like, subscribe. I mean, unfortunately, I've not been able to see anyone in the chat for like 15 minutes. So, unfortunately, sadly, I might have to end it now because it's a bit pointless just talking with me, not being able to see who's talking to me back, which is frustrating and irritating and agonizing. And that's not the reason why I do these streams. But Crystal Racing here, please like, subscribe to the channel. Of course, that is your qualifying grid for tomorrow's Grand Prix, for those of you wondering. And one more update of the sprint result. Lewis Hamilton was your sprint race winner ahead of Piastri and Verstappen. Russell getting 4th for Mercedes, along with Kimi Antonelli in 7th. Yuki Tsunoda scoring his first points for himself and Racing Bulls in 6th. Leclerc looking very frustrated this weekend, down in 5th place in the sprint. Lando Norris finishing 23.5 seconds behind Hamilton at a checkered flag. This is what I was saying. Lack of consistency from Lando Norris is a real problem. It was a problem last year, and it looks like it's a problem again this year. And with the likes of Russell, Leclerc, Hamilton, and his own teammate Piastri in the fight, he's got his work cut out if he wants to win this year's championship. And of course, Max Verstappen has got the opportunity to become the youngest 5-time champion and the youngest quintuple consecutive world champion in F1 history. So thank you and goodbye.